to the weekly commit. One idea each week that changes how I build, lead, or think. This is number 006. The world is editable. Make your mark upon it. Most people don't feel stuck because they lack ability. They feel stuck because they have absorbed a quieter belief. This is just how things are. This week, two builders reminded me that belief is optional. Genet, using automation to shape family life intentionally, and Peter Steinberger, whose OpenClaw moment showed how powerful synthesis can be, assembling what already exists into something that changes behavior in the real world. It pulled me back to Steve Jobs. Everything around you that you call life was made by people no smarter than you, and you can change it. So here's the takeaway I am keeping. Stop negotiating with defaults you didn't choose. Pick one thing that feels just how it is and poke it. The moment you see it move, you will never see your life the same way again. Let's get into it.
I want to start today with a feeling that I think is pretty universal, even if we don't always talk about it.
Right.
It's this subtle, almost nagging sensation that your life is essentially a series of menus that you didn't write. You know, you walk into a coffee shop, you pick from the options on the wall.
Or you log into Netflix and you just pick from the rows they show you.
Exactly. You go to work and you follow the process document that someone wrote 5 years ago. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's the sensation of living in a kind of read-only world.
Read only. I like that.
Yeah, like you can read the file, but you absolutely do not have permission to write to it. You can't edit it.
And honestly, sometimes that's comforting. You know, it's easier to just pick option B and move on with your day.
Oh, for sure. The cognitive load is zero.
Right. But today we're looking at a stack of insights that really challenges that comfort.
Mm-hmm.
We are diving into the weekly commit number 006, and the central theme here is honestly a bit explosive.
It really is.
It's this idea that the world is editable, and not just metaphorically, but literally editable.
It is explosive because once you accept the premise that you have what the Force calls engineering agency over your reality, you can't really go back to complaining about how things are.
You lose the excuse.
Exactly. You lose the luxury of being a passive victim of circumstance.
Which is terrifying and exciting at the same time. But before we get into the how, and we do have some really specific examples today, from homeschooling workflows to this concept called agent servers, I want to ground this first.
Okay.
Because there is a philosophy here that feels, it feels somewhat familiar.
It should feel familiar. The source material anchors this entire discussion in a concept that Steve Jobs famously articulated back in the 90s.
Okay, I've heard bits and pieces of that interview, but refresh my memory. Is that the stay hungry, stay foolish one?
No different one. This is a bit deeper. He said that everything around you, everything you call life, was made up by people who were no smarter than you. Yeah, the rules, the systems, the career paths, they were all just designed by other people. And the moment you realize that, you realize you can change it. You can mold it. You can build your own things.
Shake off the erroneous notion that life is just there and you're just going to live in it.
Precisely. Just recognizing that it's all constructed. But here's the problem. And this is where our source material, the weekly commit, really starts to dig in. Intellectually, we might nod along and agree with Steve Jobs.
Sure, it sounds great on a motivational poster.
Right. But practically, day to day, we are running on an operating system that has a massive bug in it.
A bug. Okay, break that down.
It's a bug they call quiet resignation. We treat defaults like they are laws of physics.
Like gravity.
Exactly. We look at the way the school system works or even just the way our email inbox is laid out, and we think, well, that's just how it is. It's like walking into a room with a wall in the middle and just assuming it's a load-bearing concrete wall.
When actually it might not be.
When actually it's drywall. Or maybe it's just a paper screen. But because we never poke it, we never actually find out that we could have just walked right through it.
Okay. I really like that image, the paper wall. But I have to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
Poking walls sounds exhausting. I mean, most people listening to this are just trying to get through the week. They've got jobs, kids' obligations. Is this whole editing reality thing just another way of saying hustle harder? Because I don't know if anyone needs another reason to feel unproductive right now.
No, and that is a crucial distinction to make. This isn't about hustle at all. Hustle is basically running faster on the hamster wheel that someone else built for you.
Okay.
Engineering agency, or editing reality, is stepping off the wheel entirely and asking, why am I running in the first place?
Uh-huh.
And can I build a slide instead?
Build a slide, haha.
Right. It's not about doing more. It's about designing a system that actually aligns with you.
So it's working smarter on a fundamental level. Okay, I'm listening. So how do we actually do this? The deep dive highlights a couple of specific builders who are living this out. And the first one, Genet. Her story really caught my attention because she's applying this mindset to something that is usually pretty chaotic. Family life. Yes, exactly. So Jessie is a builder by trade. She runs a company. But the source focuses entirely on how she debugged her home life, specifically tackling the challenge of education and screen time.
So she homeschools then?
She does, but the source makes a very strong point here. Don't get hung up on the label of homeschooling. It's not about the label, it's about the posture. She refers to it as parent-driven education.
Parent-driven education, which sounds nice in theory, but what does that actually look like on a random Tuesday?
Well, let's look at the classic modern parenting nightmare, the iPad.
Oh, boy.
Right. You need a break, you have to take a call, you hand keep the tablet, and what immediately happens, they end up on YouTube, and the algorithm just completely takes the wheel. It feeds them whatever is loud, fast, and keeps them tapping the screen. It's usually absolute garbage.
Exactly. That right there is the default.
Yeah.
The default is that Google's recommendation algorithm decides what your child is going to learn today. Now, how do most parents fight this?
They fight the device, they ban the iPad, or they set those little screen time limits that the kids figure out how to bypass anyway.
Right. Put that away. It's rotting your brain.
Yeah.
But Jessie didn't fight the device. She decided to edit the reality. She realized the problem wasn't the glowing screen itself. The problem was the feed.
The algorithm.
Yes. So she built a custom workflow.
Okay, when you say she built a workflow, are we just talking about making a YouTube playlist?
No, this is where the engineering agency really shines.
Yeah.
She set up a full automation. She essentially built a system that scrapes or automatically downloads specific high-quality videos that she personally vets.
Oh.
Yeah, like nature documentaries, specific educational channels, and it pipes all of that into a local server or a dedicated interface just for her kids.
That is wild. So she basically built a private walled-off Netflix for her house.
In a way, yes. She completely stripped out the recommendation engine. Her kids can still watch TV, they can use screens, but they are watching a curated library that aligns with her family's values, not an infinite scroll designed to sell ad space.
That is intense, but I completely get the point. She refused to accept the menu options provided by a massive tech platform. She just wrote her own menu.
And notice something important here. She didn't do this to launch a startup.
Right.
She didn't pitch this idea to venture capitalists. She did it just to solve a Tuesday afternoon problem in her own living room. She used automation to support her values rather than just surrendering to the defaults of Silicon Valley.
It's the difference between being a passive consumer and what would you call it? A creator.
An editor. She edited the flow of information coming into her physical house. And sure, doing that requires a little bit of technical know-how, but the mindset is the important part here. She looked at the algorithm and essentially said, you don't work for me. Or rather, I don't work for you, you work for me.
I don't work for you. I love that. Okay, so that's the family side of things, kind of hacking the social software of the home. But the source material also pivots heavily to the hard technical side.
It does.
And this is where we get into some terminology that we definitely need to unpack for people. We're talking about a guy named Peter Steinberger and a project called OpenClaw.
Yes, so Peter is somewhat of a legend in the software space, specifically around building PDF technologies. But the insight here isn't about PDFs at all. It's about his underlying philosophy of building things.
The source mentions a conversation he had on Lex Fridman's show, and they bring up this concept of magic in technology.
Right. And I think we often assume that magic in tech means inventing something totally unprecedented, like discovering a new element or inventing electricity from scratch.
Something nobody has ever seen before.
Exactly. But Peter argues that in the modern digital world, magic is actually just synthesis.
Synthesis. Break that down for me. How is synthesis magic?
It means taking components that already exist out in the open component A and component B and just gluing them together in a way that nobody else bothered to think of.
Kind of like playing with Legos.
That is the perfect way to look at it. You don't have to manufacture the plastic bricks yourself. The bricks are already there. You just need to have the vision and the agency to build the castle.
Okay.
OpenClaw is a prime example of this. It's a project that takes existing open source code libraries, stuff that is completely free and available for anyone to use, and it wraps them together in an interface that makes them incredibly powerful and user-friendly.
So the real innovation isn't writing the raw code from scratch. The innovation is the assembly.
It's the taste. It's the integration. The source actually calls it the glue. The magic is the glue. And this connects directly to a massive cultural trend that the research identifies, and that is the rise of the agent server.
Okay, yes. This is where I need you to explain it to me like I'm 5. Agent server. It sounds like a piece of hardware from a sci-fi movie. What exactly is it?
It's so much simpler than it sounds. Think about how we use the internet today. If you want to use an AI assistant, you go to ChatGPT or Claude. You type your question into a little box.
Right.
That message then travels to a massive server farm somewhere in Virginia or Oregon. It gets processed by their computers, and the answer gets sent back to you.
Yeah, it's all in the cloud. That's the normal way we do things.
That's the cloud intelligence model, the default. But the catch is you are renting that intelligence. It does not belong to you.
And you pay for it every month.
Exactly. It creates a privacy risk because your data is on their servers. It costs a monthly subscription. And if your internet connection drops, your brain essentially goes offline, you lose the capability.
Right, you're totally dependent on them. So what's the alternative? How does an agent server fix that?
Imagine a small, relatively cheap computer, like an Apple Mac Mini, sitting quietly in your closet or on your desk at home. It's plugged in and running 24/7. But instead of pinging the cloud, it have AI models downloaded directly onto it.
On the local machine itself?
Yes. It knows your calendar. It has access to your local files. It learns your specific preferences over time. But it's not talking to the outside internet to do its thinking. It's doing all the processing right there inside your house.
Oh, wow. It's basically like having a digital butler who lives in the spare room instead of calling a remote call center every time you need something.
That is a fantastic analogy, yes. And this is exactly why the source points at a really fascinating hardware trend right now, specifically with Mac Minis.
I saw that note in the material. It said people are suddenly buying up Mac Minis in huge numbers, but not because Apple released some flashy new consumer feature.
No, they aren't buying them to watch YouTube or browse the web faster. They're buying them because the new processors inside them are finally powerful enough to run these AI brains locally.
To be the butler.
Exactly. People are using them to serve as the home base for their entire digital lives.
So this goes right back to the Genet example with the iPad. It's entirely about control.
It is about ownership. See, for the last 15 years or so, we've been living deep in the era of SaaS, software as a service.
Which is just corporate speak for subscription nightmare, right?
Pretty much. It's the renting model of the internet. You pay $10 a month for a Notes app, $15 for a project manager, $20 for a design tool. You pay forever, but you own absolutely none of it.
Right, and they can change the interface or the pricing whenever they want.
The agent server movement is a direct rebellion against that. It's people waking up and saying, I want to own the plumbing. I want this capability to live permanently on my own machine.
That feels like a monumental shift in how we relate to computers. It's moving from being a tenant in the digital world to finally being a homeowner. You can knock down the walls if you want to. You can paint the rooms whatever color you want.
And you can edit the reality. If you rely on the cloud, you just have to accept their forced updates, their redesigns, their algorithm tweaks. If you run your own agent server, you decide exactly how it works.
Okay, I am completely sold on the philosophy here. I want to be a homeowner, not a renter. I want to be an editor, not just a reader.
Good.
But I look at my life and honestly, I see a lot of defaults. And the reality is I do not know how to code a Python script to scrape videos for my kids. And I definitely don't have a Mac Mini humming away in my closet. Where does a normal person actually start with this?
You start exactly where you are with what the source calls the status quo challenge.
Okay, is this the bug fix section that was mentioned in the text?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I want to be incredibly clear here before we get into it, because I know you were skeptical earlier about the whole hustle culture thing.
Right.
This challenge is definitively not about optimization.
Good. Because I really do not need a new framework to save 4 seconds on my morning coffee routine.
Exactly. Optimization is a trap. It's just playing the existing game slightly faster. How can I answer 100 emails in 1 hour instead of 2? That's optimization.
Right.
Agency editing reality is pausing to ask, why am I answering these 100 emails at all? Can I change the fundamental rules of this interaction?
Okay, that makes sense. So how do we actually run this status quo challenge? What are the steps?
The prompt is actually beautifully simple. Once a week, you pick just one default setting in your life, something you've just accepted and stopped questioning. And you ask yourself one guiding question. What would this look like if it was designed purely for my values?
Designed for my values. Okay, can we ground this? Give me a concrete example of how this plays out. Let's take something everyone deals with. Meetings, work meetings.
Perfect example. So
Yeah.
what is the default for a meeting? The default is if someone sends you a calendar invite, you hit accept. You show up, you sit there quietly for an hour, and then you leave.
Right. I have to go, it's on my calendar.
That is the read-only version of your work life. You are just executing someone else's code.
So how do we apply the challenge?
Ask the question. What would your calendar look like if it was designed for your personal value of, say, doing deep focused work?
Well, I guess I'd start by blocking out my mornings so
Yeah.
nobody can book them.
That's a good start. That's a filter. But you can go even deeper. Maybe the edit is establishing a brand new rule, a hard rule. I absolutely do not accept meetings that don't have a written agenda attached.
Oh, man.
Or maybe it's a workflow edit. You set up an autoresponder on your email that politely says, I only check my inbox at 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. If this is an emergency, call me.
Oof. Honestly, that feels a little scary. People might get annoyed or mad at me for doing that.
And that fear right there, that is the drywall.
The paper wall.
Exactly. You think it's a load-bearing concrete wall. You think if I enforce a boundary on my calendar, I'll get fired. But have you ever actually tested it?
Probably not, no. We just assume the worst.
The source heavily suggests starting small so you don't panic. You don't need to rage quit your job. Just create a tiny parallel path.
Give me an example of a small one outside of work.
Okay, let's look at family dinner. Maybe the default right now is that everyone is eating while mindlessly scrolling their phones because you're all just exhausted at the end of the day.
Guilty. Very guilty.
The edit to that reality isn't proclaiming we're now a perfect traditional family who has deep philosophical conversations every night. That's too big.
Right.
The edit is just a basket. A physical, cheap wooden basket by the front door. And the new rule is from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., all phones go in the basket. That basket is a piece of technology. It's an intervention that edits the flow of time and attention in your home.
It sounds so simple when you phrase it like that, just a basket, but it really is an assertion of agency, isn't it? It's looking at your living room and saying, this hour works the way I say it works, not the way the TikTok algorithm says it works.
Yes, perfectly said. And the source emphasizes this point over and over. The specific tool really does not matter. It doesn't matter if your tool is a wooden basket or a complex Python script or a Mac Mini running an AI model.
It's the action of doing it.
The whole point is just to prove to your own brain that the wall isn't real. You push on it, and it moves.
It's almost like cognitive behavioral therapy for your agency.
That is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
You are actively retraining your brain to spot the edit button in every situation.
So if I actually commit to this, if I put the phones in the basket or I set up the strict email filter, what's the end game here? Where does this lead?
The end game is a total perspective shift. You stop seeing problems and you start seeing projects.
Projects.
Right. When you encounter something deeply frustrating, a painfully slow process at the DMV, a messy, chaotic routine at home, a bad workflow at the office, you don't just sigh and complain to your friends about it. Your first thought becomes, how would I re-engineer this?
You completely stop being a victim to the friction.
You become a builder. You become an editor. And the source has this really beautiful line near the end about the downstream effect of this mindset. It says, the moment you see the wall move, you will never be able to see your life the same way again. It's very much like the Matrix. Once you see the green code raining down, you can't unsee it. You know you can manipulate it.
That is incredibly powerful. It really shifts the burden of responsibility, doesn't it? Because if I'm unhappy with a system in my life now, I know it's kind of on me to pick up the pen and rewrite it.
It is on you. The permission slip to change things was signed a long time ago. You just have to realize you're holding it and decide to finally use it.
I love that. I want to wrap up by bringing this all the way back to you listening to this right now. We've covered a lot of ground today, from scraping videos for homeschooling to the rise of local server farms in our closets. But the single thread connecting all of it is this core idea of the editable world.
And the weekly commit deep dive is really asking all of us to make a fundamental choice. Are we going to keep accepting the default menus we are handed? Or are we going to commit to building our own custom version of reality?
So here is the question that I want to leave you with today. And it's a bit of a challenge to mull over. If everything really is editable, your job, your relationships, your morning routine, the specific way you interact with the technology in your pocket,
Right.
If it's all editable and you are currently unhappy with one of those things, are you truly stuck?
Or have you just not realized that you're holding the pen?
Think about that this week. Go find a default wall in your life and just give it a little push. You might be really surprised to find out it's made of paper. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
See you next time.